Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I specifically want to talk about why the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon characters, Presto and Diana, Bobby and Sheila, and Hank and Eric, and Udi, have been fully embraced by the new Dungeons and Dragons VE, the new 2024 core rulebooks, and why there are now two free adventures that feature them um, uh, that have come straight from Hasbro, and why they're really being doubled down on by Hasbro. All right, so one, the first time this happened was This started in Dragons of Dragons of Shipwreck Isle. Yeah, so it was a starter set, which was Dragons of Shipwreck Isle, and it featured the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon characters. And those characters were prominent in that story. It was extremely well done. But they weren't statted and playable at that point. For Dungeons and Dragons 5e. So then, at this point, then just last year we got Udi and the Lost Horde, and this was the first free Dungeons and Dragons adventure to say, okay, hey, here's a free adventure. But if you're new and you don't know how to make your own characters, or if you would just like to, play as the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon characters, here you go. Here's all the statted sheets and everything you need, right? So they added them in there, right? Now, there's 6 characters, okay? Now, first of all, I'm going to talk about why that's important, okay? So one, this is excellent and is really good because this is everything. It does so much. One, it immediately grounds people who don't know about Gary Gygax to Gary Gygax. These characters were born out of Gary Gygax's attempt to make a 1980s movie out of Dungeons and Dragons. He went to Hollywood and he attempted to make a Dungeons and Dragons movie. He wasn't able to do that, but he was able to get this Saturday morning cartoon, and so it immediately reconnects anybody who's new or fresh, or just loves current Dungeons and Dragons with the source Gary Gygax. That's one thing it does. The other thing it does is, because Gary Gygax was the most progressive American of his time, he made sure that it was that group was gendered, right? So you have 4 male characters and 2 female characters. That's excellent. Also, that it represented America, right? White people, black people, right? So there was some diversity there, right? And all that progressiveness established in the 1980s by Gary Gygax is now perfectly available at the table, right? So those are great reasons to do this. By the way, I mentioned Udi and the Lost Horde, but they've also now did the same thing using these characters for Hold Back the Dead, which is the second free Dungeons and Dragons adventure that features them, right, as playable characters, right? So you get all that progressiveness, but you also get a lock to the old school Dungeons and Dragons, right? What's also interesting is this is an in-your-face to every OSR and indie. And they're like, oh, we're doing this because you can't, because you suck. OSE, you don't have any famous characters. Oh, Shadow Dark, you don't have any characters anybody knows. Oh, Pathfinder, you don't have any characters that are any action figures made of, right? It's just a huge middle finger to every OSR and indie that goes, oh, Dungeons and Dragons isn't better than us. They're like, it's a massive flex. They're like, yeah, we are way better than you, right? Like, we have characters that you could watch on television, that you could watch on streaming, that you could watch in movies, that are, on towels, right? That are like known throughout the world, right? And no OSR and no indie has any characters like this. It is just completely unprecedented anywhere else in the industry. So it's a huge flex. The last part, let's talk about Nico, okay? So you got the 6 characters, but they added a new one, right? This is wild. Okay, so James Wyatt did this, and Nico was introduced and added to these playable characters. Now, Nico wasn't in the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon, so why was she added? So, a couple of reasons. Why, right? So this is why I think she was added. A whole bunch of reasons. Let's get into it. First, she's Asian, right? If you want to represent America, Gary did what he could, right? He did white, he did black. Where are Asians? Like, they weren't there, right? Now Asian Americans are represented by Nico, right? Also, it's important to understand, Nico is not a Dungeons and Dragons character. She is exactly what Diana, Bobby, Sheila, Diana, Sheila, and Bobby, Hank, and Eric are, right? They're Dungeons and Dragons players who went to the Dungeons and Dragons world and became Dungeons and Dragons adventurers. Nico is the same. She played Dungeons and Dragons, then was sucked into the Dungeons and Dragons world at a different time with a different group, right? Than those people. So then the core six, right? So let's talk about Nico, right? So Nico is Asian, and so there's representation there, right? Which expands on what Gary did. In addition to that, it puts the ratio of boy to girl at not 50%, but like 66%, right? So it's 4 boys and 3 girls, right? So that's good. More representation across genders, right? Then across genders, right? Then the last thing is, when you look at the classes, right, for what, if you just have the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon, what are the classes that are represented? Barbarian, Cavalier, and then Rogue, and Magic User. But there's no, you have 3 of the core 4. You have the Fighter, you have the Rogue, and you have the Wizard. They're all represented, right? But there's no Cleric. And so Nico was added so that they could continue to do this, so they could continue to use the 1983 Saturday morning cartoon characters for all the reasons I already listed, but also cover the core 4. So Nico had to be added because the Cleric needed to be covered, right? And so that, people can, because there are some groups who are like, oh, you have to cover all 4 of the core 4 classes, right? So that's the reason why. I absolutely love this. I hope this goes on forever. I hope that these are the pre-gens for every single free adventure that they give going forward. This is awesome in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. That you heard in this video is my humble opinion. Absolutely nothing less, absolutely nothing more. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.